Mueller, She Wrote is brought to you by Murder Book, a new true crime podcast hosted by best-selling author Michael Connelly, available on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Also be sure to check out Dark Sacred Night, Michael Connelly's latest #1 bestseller featuring detectives Harry Bosch and Renee Ballard. And thanks to Noom for supporting Mueller, She Wrote. Sticking to a weight loss plan can be hard. Noom is designed for results. It's out with the old habits and in with the new. Sign up for your trial today at Noom, Noom.com/AG. And thanks to Skillshare for supporting Mueller, She Wrote. Join the millions of students already learning Skillshare today with a special offer just for our listeners. Get 2 months of Skillshare for free. That's right, Skillshare is offering Mueller, She Wrote listeners 2 months of unlimited access to over 25,000 classes for free. To sign up, go to Skillshare.com/AG. Again, that's Skillshare.com/AG to start your 2 months now.
So to be clear, Mr. Trump has no financial relationships with any Russian oligarchs.
That's what he said. That's what I said. That's obviously what our position is.
I'm not aware of any of those activities. I have been called a surrogate at a time or two in that campaign, and I did not have communications with the Russians.
What do I have to get involved with Putin for? I have nothing to do with Putin. I've never spoken to him. I don't know anything about him other than he will respect me. Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
So, it is political. You're a communist.
No, Mr. Green. Communism is just a red herring. Like all members of the oldest profession, I'm a capitalist.
Hello and welcome to Mueller, She Wrote. I'm your host, AG, and with me as always is Jaleesa Johnson.
Hello.
And Jordan Coburn.
Hello.
First, a big thank you to we have over 6,400 patrons now, guys, who get access to our MSW book club, which is out now, the midweek full-length ad-free episodes, ad-free main episodes, pre-sale or VIP ticket discounts to live shows, access to our closed Facebook group where you can play the Fantasy Indictment League and all sorts of gifts. So all that for $3, as little as $3. So you're all awesome. Thank you so much. And you're all now automatically patrons for our forthcoming weekday show called The Daily Beans. Coming soon. I kind of was like, 7,000 patrons, that'll be next year. No, it's like probably April. So
yeah, I feel like as soon as we started talking about it, people started really jumping on and joining.
Yep.
Very quickly.
Which is great. Yeah, I'm excited.
Coming out soon. Let's see here. Speaking of live shows, you can come see us at the Miracle Theater with Natasha Bertrand and Katie Fang on March 29th in Washington, D.C. We'll also be at the Bell House in Brooklyn March 30th with Matthew Miller, who's joining us later in the show for the interview to talk about Manafort's bullshit sentence, and Andrea Chalupa from Gaslit Nation. She'll be there as well. Or you can come see us at Largo in Hollywood April 18th with special guests Elizabeth Cronise-McLaughlin and Greg Proops, with special appearance by Randall of Crazy Ass Honey Badger fame. The Largo was sold out, but they've released a limited amount of additional tickets. And as of this recording, there are still some left, so grab them now. And announcing our live show in Minneapolis at the Parkway Theater June 14th. There are general admission tickets and VIP meet and greet packages available now. Just head to the Parkway Theater's website to grab your tickets for that, or we should be able to update it on MuellerSheWrote.com. This week was intense, you guys. I mostly sat around waiting for the Manafort sentencing, which was a massive letdown. But how was your week?
It was okay. I'm with you on that. It's kind of a bummer.
It was a letdown. It was a huge letdown.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think Ellis has just been kind of not problematic. That's a weighted word to describe him, but he's been sort of siding on the side of like absolutely 100% not relating the sentence in any way whatsoever to the Mueller probe.
Yeah, he hated this case.
He did. He hated this case, and he thought it was bullshit. It was obvious. I think he had statements that were indicative of him being like, "This is bullshit. I'm not going to treat this like it's some appendage of the Mueller probe."
Yeah, and we're going to get into the difference between that and regular criminals like the rest of us, commoners, and how those sentences differ when we talk to Matthew Miller later, and we might cover it again in the wrap-up, so stick around for that. Jordan, you're going to take a deep dive into a story about a guy we haven't talked about for a while, Erik Prince. And Jaleesa, you'll be covering some interesting news about Cindy Yang, Wang Yang, I call her, the woman who founded the Orchids of Asia Day Spa in Jupiter, Florida, where Patriots owner Robert Kraft was caught getting happy endings from trafficked women. So this isn't just a, typical prostitution bust. These are sex trafficked women that are there for against their will. So yuck. That's horrifying. And I'm going to talk about the also-rans that received one of those 81 letters Gerry Nadler sent out this week. And as previously stated, we have MSNBC Justice and Security Analyst Matthew Miller joining us for the interview. I believe we fixed the audio issues, so thank you for your patience on that. We're still, indie, and we still have to do all this ourselves, so we appreciate your patience. But he and I will be chatting about, again, the ridiculous miscarriage of justice that was Manafort's sentencing. But before we jump into the news, it's time for corrections.
It's a mistake. It's hard for me to say I'm sorry. Oh, I made a mistake.
Okay, so first, I said that when Jeffrey Epstein, that's the pedophile guy with the sex trafficking and the parties and Alan Dershowitz and Trump and all that, I said when he was serving his sweetheart sentence that he got to go home at night and went to his private jail cell during the day, but it's the other way around, so thank you for pointing that out. I also implied that the framers of the Constitution were rad for including term limits, but those came much later, obviously in 1951 with the 22nd Amendment. Sorry for the confusion there. Also, we want to clarify that we know that the indicted Bibi Netanyahu was democratically elected when we read the concerns from a journalist named Inbar, who we incidentally called him, and we later found out that that is a she/her name traditionally, and that she does in fact identify as a she. So apologies there. Sorry, Inbar. I think what did you say, Jaleesa? It's Israeli.
It's the Hebrew name for Amber.
Yeah, that's right. I also said there would be there weren't going to be any charges in the shooting of Stephon Clark brought by the grand jury, but it was actually the Sacktown County DA, Sacramento County District Attorney that made that decision. Sacktown County DA. It sounds like a weird song. And for the pronunciation of the right-wing party in Sweden, I found out I was close, but it's a soft G, like GIF. It's not GIF, it's GIF. And that makes it Sverigedemokraterna. Okay, so you have to add that at the end. So if that's not right, no more. Just let's agree that I can't pronounce it, though one Swedish listener gave me a 9 out of 10. So thank you for that. I also said Trump got an MBA and probably lied about it. Well, he didn't, so I was right when I guessed he didn't have one. Then we had dedicated, and this was kind of an interesting bunch of emails that we got. We dedicated the last episode to Brody Stevens, and we said that he had committed suicide. And many of you suggested we say died by suicide because the word committed connotates a bad act. And I really like that, and I'm going to make an effort to use that.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
Yeah, I like that. I like that better. So finally, we said Obama was not a legacy at Harvard, but his dad went there. So technically he was, even though his dad got a PhD in economics, so he wasn't a law legacy. But we wanted to be clear about that. And somebody asked about the phrase I used in the midweek episode for patrons, wanting to know what I meant by nuclear boobies. They're like, what are nuclear boobies? So when you drive up the 5 between San Diego and Los Angeles and you pass San Onofre State Beach, there's the San Onofre nuclear power plant, and the cooling towers are shaped like 2 giant boobs. So we call them the nuclear boobies. You can check in there on Facebook if you want. It's a thing.
Yeah, you can't miss it when you're driving past it.
No,
yeah. Drive by there and try to have your first thought not be boobies. I dare you.
And it was even featured in The Naked Gun.
Everywhere I look, something reminds me of her.
Yeah, so it's unmistakable monument to tits.
Yeah, it's a great landmark.
It is, and it's kind of like the halfway point.
Mm-hmm.
So we always, if you're driving up to LA, where are you at? Nuclear boobies.
Yeah, it's the beacon of boobies.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Bringing love and boobies to the West Coast. Also, after our little chat we had about constructive feedback, I got to say, you guys, your compliment sandwiches were delicious this week and a pleasure to read. So thank you. And if you have any corrections, just send them over to hello@mullershewrote.com and we'll get them right someday. Sverigedemokraterna. I can do it. Probably not. All right, with corrections out of the way, what do you say we report some news with just the facts? Okay, all the way back to the beginning of the week, right after I did my massive hot note on all things that House Dems were investigating, Gerry Nadler wrote 81 letters to 81 people to request documents, and I'll go over that in hot notes for you. We had a lot of folks asking for a breakdown of those requests. Someone's like, hey, can you go over those 81 things and say what they're involved in. And I'm like, that's our entire podcast for the last year and a half. So you can just listen to the whole podcast. But there's some names on there that a lot of people weren't familiar with, and I wanted to bring those up because we have mentioned all of them, but there's some that we've only mentioned once or twice or in passing, and we didn't really put a spotlight on. So we'll go over those in hot notes. Then Monday, we learned the House is also seeking information about the communications between Putin and Trump. As you'll remember, there were at least a half dozen occasions where Trump and Putin either met or called each other, all of which we had to learn about from Russian state media because Trump wouldn't let American journalists in the room or to cover them. Nor do I imagine he wanted us to know what he was saying in those meetings. Some of them were clandestine, pretty secret. So Monday, 3 House committee chairs sent a letter to the White House and the State Department requesting detailed information about the communications between Trump and Putin. Adam Schiff, Elliot Engel, and Elijah Cummings, those are the chairs of House Intel, House Foreign Affairs, and House Oversight, respectively, sent the requests to acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. They're demanding all the topics they discussed, any documents related to the meetings and calls, if any of the chats provided a basis for any foreign policy. They also want to know if anyone concealed, obscured, or misrepresented the substance of the communications to any federal officials, departments, or agencies to shield Trump from scrutiny by Congress or law enforcement. So it's pretty wide-ranging, and they have until the Ides of March to comply. That's March 15th, for people who haven't read Julius Caesar in a while.
Or watched that movie.
Does Ides mean 15?
I think so. All I know is the Ides of March are, the 15th of March.
Cool.
And it was Beware the Ides of March. That's when Brutus stabbed Caesar.
Oh, no. Et tu, Brute.
Et tu.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, Brutus?
Brute. It's Brute in Latin. Brutus over here. Over here. Because we were over here when that was happening. We weren't. Actually, I remember I sent out, one of my favorite tweets I ever put out was, if I ever meet Michael Bublé, I hope that he likes monster trucks too, so that I can say et tu Bublé. And that was seriously one of my favorite tweets.
I like that. I've never been able to set up a premise, but I wanted to have a punchline that was just like et tu Butte.
Yeah.
But I can't figure that out.
Yeah, you can do that. If any girl you're chasing or any dude has a hot ass that you're chasing and then they
turn me down,
forsake you, or it's unrequited, that could be an et tu Butte.
Thank you so much, AG.
Or if you do a booty call. And they never hit you back. Like maybe they do the ... and then it disappears, and then the ... and it disappears. You can be et tu Butte. And then,
yes,
that's perfect.
There you go.
Or hemorrhoids, et tu Butte.
Wow, yes, dude.
You traitor. You butt traitor.
I love this.
We also learned Monday that Trump asked Gary Cohen to block the AT&T and Time Warner merger, which in any other administration would be a huge scandal. This came to light in a report about the unnatural relationship between Fox News and the White House, and I'd like to bring up the fact that Fox News' Twitter is still dark and has been ever since Rupert Murdoch met with Turtle Dick Mitch on the Hill November 8th of last year. My guess, and this is Beans, is that Fox News tweeted out something it wasn't supposed to, like, I don't know, stolen WikiLeaks documents, and has been forced to shutter its account while it's under investigation. Because, as we know, WikiLeaks is under investigation right now. But WikiLeaks' tweet is back, or Twitter's back up. I don't know. Anyway, for this Time Warner merger, we know that Trump hates CNN, which is part of this deal. And it's reminiscent of Trump trying to jack up shipping prices on Bezos because he doesn't like the Washington Post, which Bezos owns, and even likely working with AMI and David Pecker to blackmail Bezos. So if true, Trump telling Gary Cohen to block this deal is a blatant abuse of power. It will likely show up in the articles of impeachment, so look out for that. And according to a source, Trump called Cohen and then Chief of Staff John Kelly into his office to say to Kelly, I've been telling Cohen to get this lawsuit filed and nothing has happened. I've mentioned it 50 times. I want to make sure it's filed. I want that deal blocked. So that's pretty straightforward. That wasn't like one of those weird communications like how you just kind of look at somebody and say, what are we going to do here? Then I want it blocked. And afterwards, according to Jane Mayer of The New Yorker, Cohen told Kelly not to follow through with the president's request. Now, let's think about what we know about Cohen and Kelly. Cohen resigned after, I think, Jordan, we were talking about this in one of the old book reviews, that he couldn't get on board with Trump's tariffs, right? Mm-hmm. And Kelly, we know he hates Trump.
Yeah, because Cohen actually knows econ.
Right. He's like, I can't. I gotta go, man. You're fucking stupid. And then Kelly hates Trump, obviously. So how do you think this is gonna play out? It's not looking good for Trump, though we've said this many times before. So who knows? The Wall Street Journal then reported Tuesday that a lawyer for Cohen approached Trump's legal team, specifically Jay Sekulow and Rudy Giuliani, about a pardon after federal agents raided Cohen's properties last April. It's important to note that during his testimony, Cohen said the last communications he had with Trump or any of Trump's agents was just after the raid. Remember, he was 2 months after the raid, I think, maybe. And Trump has admitted Cohen's lawyers and Cohen himself asked for a pardon, and Trump and his attorneys told them no. So presumably Cohen was raided. He asked for a pardon, either directly or through legal channels. Then it ultimately said no. So Cohen decided to flip on him. If Trump or Trump's attorneys discussed at all any aspect of a potential pardon, they're on the hook criminally, provided that it can be proven. So throw that on the stack of obstructions of justice. And then meanwhile, Cohen told Congress he never asked for a pardon.
God damn it.
And he may have perjured himself there, but he might not have. He might have been doing the semantics thing where he personally didn't ask Trump for a pardon, but maybe he sent his lawyers or he asked his lawyers or he never actually said, give me a pardon to Trump with his mouth. I mean, that might be it, but we'll find out.
With his mouth.
They're both lying liars. So without documentary evidence, it's going to be really impossible to know the real story. In other news, Cohen met behind closed doors again this Wednesday with the House Intel Committee, where he apparently provided documents showing alleged edits to his 2017 testimony about Trump Tower Moscow by Trump lawyers. The documents show Jay Sekulow made changes to Cohen's statements to the House and Senate Intel committees, and that the statements were reviewed ahead of time by the attorney for Kushner and Ivanka, Abby Lowell. And that sounds like a conspiracy to me. There's a lot of people involved, so conspiracy sounds like suborning perjury, maybe witness tampering, certainly obstruction of justice. And if Trump knew about it, he's implicated. Finally, because if you know about it and you let it happen, you're in on the conspiracy. You are a fellow conspirator. And then finally, we learned this week that Cohen is suing the Trump Organization for legal fees resulting from the Mueller probe and the Stormy Daniels lawsuit. Cohen contends he had a contractual agreement with the Trump Organization to compensate him for fees and costs incurred through his work with and on behalf of company officials. He claims the Trump Organization owes him $1.9 million for legal fees and an additional $1.9 million that he was forced to forfeit as part of his criminal sentence arising from conduct directed by the president.
Damn.
And this is a pretty slick legal move because if Trump fights it, he will be subject to deposition and discovery.
Yeah, I mean, it seems fair. And that's also chump change if,
Trump change?
Yes.
Don't you want a loan?
Yes, exactly. It's Trump change. Every time I say that, though, I'm like, wait, no, he's actually not nearly as rich as we think he is.
He has no money, probably. Let's see. We also learned Tuesday some stuff about the Roger Stone case. As you know, Judge Jackson slapped a limited gag order on him. And last week, Stone, she put the limited gag order on him, and then we guessed, even though we wanted her to revoke the bail, after he went out and just said a bunch of bullshit, she just expanded the gag order, right? And then this last week, Stone posted a photo of Judge Jackson on social media with what appeared to be crosshairs by her head, and the judge then demanded he had until this last Monday to explain himself. Like, what the fuck, bro? And there's also a book being released that also probably violates his gag order because it's about how Trump-Russia is a hoax, right? The Russia witch hoax or whatever the fuck. Not to mention, over this last weekend, Stone posted a mock-up movie poster parody of Who Framed Roger Rabbit that said, Who Framed Roger Stone? So in court this week, the judge chastised him and then gave him until March 11th to get his shit together. And if she's not satisfied with it, she might, quote, adjust his environment. So I'm hoping she revokes bail and throws him in jail.
Dude, he'd be such a jail queen.
Oh,
he'd fucking love that shit.
He would. He would make the jumpsuit look so fashionable.
He remind me of Dr. Evil when he was in jail.
Oh, yeah.
He'd get a little hard knock life.
He'll get a mini-me.
Going. It would be great. Oh, a mini stone.
Mini Roger. Yeah, mini stone.
It's just a rock, though, with his name on it.
With that top hat.
I can imagine him taking everything like a champ. He's like, I'm just happy to be here. I've been working towards this my whole life.
I'm the most famous guy here.
Yeah.
And that's all that matters.
Give me that bologna.
Give me that green bologna. Yeah, I and when he first violated the gag order, the limited gag order, and I wanted him to be thrown in jail. I didn't think she was going to revoke his bail. Jordan, you and I agreed on this too, and Jaleesa, I think you did too. Like, she's just going to expand the gag order. But this time I think she might actually revoke his bail. So
yeah, I mean, releasing or re-releasing, as they say, a book that's all about how this entire investigation is a hoax. That's like
calling her bluff.
Jesus, yeah, it's putting like crosshairs on the whole thing.
It's almost like when Manafort was out on bail and he wrote that op-ed with his European friends about how Russia was a hoax. It's like, you can't. They're just so dumb. You guys, I don't get it. I just don't understand. And I do, though. I think Beans on revoking his bail, and then he'll be in jail until the trial starts.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Because she said that they have until March 11th to show how they can get back in compliance with it. And it's like, if they've already sold copies, which they did and stuff, I don't know. I don't know how you can do damage control on all the things that he's done as a whole at this point.
No, I don't think you can take that back. Sold books. I didn't buy one. But,
a recall.
We're issuing a recall on these books. That would be funny if he suggested that. Can we just do a recall, Judge?
Yes. Yeah. I'll tell them all it's contaminated with bullshit.
I really honestly think he just doesn't care as long as he's getting attention. And I'm kind of feel bad for giving it to him right now, but whatever. He doesn't listen. So, guys, we'll be right back. Hey, Mueller junkies. Thanks to Murder Book, the new true crime podcast hosted by best-selling author Michael Connelly, for supporting Mueller, She Wrote. Returning to his roots as a journalist, best-selling author Michael Connelly now presents the true crime podcast Murder Book, working with the very best detectives who inform his novels and his hit television show Bosch. The podcast explores real homicide cases not covered by mainstream media. Murder Book Season 1 is The Telltale Bullet, and it dives into a 30-year-old Hollywood carjacking gone wrong that tests the limits of the American criminal justice system. Sound familiar? Also, from Michael Connelly, Dark Sacred Night, his latest #1 bestseller featuring detectives Harry Bosch and Renee Ballard. You can find Dark Sacred Night wherever books are sold. I personally love the way Michael Connelly tells a story, and I know you will too. Not only is his book well written and riveting, it's a page-turner, but the way he presents law enforcement cases in his true crime podcast, Murder Book, provides a unique point of view that I haven't heard before in podcasting, so I look forward to it every week. So be sure to check out Michael Connelly's new Murder Book podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, or at murderbookpodcast.com. That's murderbookpodcast.com. You'll be glad you did. All right, guys, welcome back. Let's see, we were on Tuesday, and the New Yorker did a piece on the new hire for the House Intel Committee, Daniel Goldman.
Oh, yes, Coleman. The D is silent in America. It's Col de Lomont, or Cole of the Isle of Man in France, where Armand's chateau is, and Colderman in Greece, where Armand's work is, and finally the vulgar Coleman in Florida, where Armand's home is. So actually, we don't know where we are until we hear our last name pronounced.
So Goldman is a veteran prosecutor with experience in Russian organized crime, money laundering, securities fraud, and racketeering, and he has 10 years' experience with the Southern District of New York, Trump's favorite district, in that U.S. Attorney's Office. And this is a guy Schiff hired to lead the House Intelligence Committee's investigation into Trump's ties to Russia. The House Intelligence Committee is focusing more on the Russia-Trump thing, whereas the Oversight Committee is focusing more on financial oversight, and the Judiciary is looking at obstruction of justice. So they're all kind of looking at their own things as their charters tell them to. And we'll keep an eye on that investigation as it unfolds. Also Tuesday, we found out that it appears Michael Caputo is going full Nunberg, as Jaleesa says, in that he's refusing to cooperate with the House Judiciary Committee's inquiry into whether or not Trump has abused his power. So Caputo told the Washington Post that he has spoken to 4 other Trump associates, 4 other guys, who received requests from the Judiciary Committee to start an alliance of assholes, I guess, to resist requests for testimony.
An alliance of assholes, like a human centipede thing.
Let's just sew our lips to each other's butts and we'll never tell. Caputo says that was weird. Caputo says the request is a perjury trap designed to impeach the president. I'm sure all 5 idiots will be subpoenaed, so stay tuned.
Yeah, there's a lot of dots he's connecting there. A perjury trap to impeach the president. He just skips over the him being perjured part.
Right. Or the crimes.
Everything that would happen in between.
Minor details.
They went to 7-Eleven and they impeached the president.
So did Jesse Smollett. No, that was he went to the Subway.
Oh, that's going to become a verb soon.
It will.
To small at somebody.
Mm-hmm.
It is. All
it's
right.
a unique name.
It is. And is it pronounced Smollett or Smollett or?
I guess Smollett.
I've heard different ways.
Yeah.
Jussie.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, he's in trouble too. I think 16 indictments dropped on him today.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez. What a weird world. Also Tuesday, the Washington Post did a piece on Trump's extensive efforts to hide his grades from the public. We know from the Cohen testimony that Cohen wrote threatening letters to Trump's schools, warning them against releasing Trump's grades. But the Washington Post broke the news that the New York Military Academy moved its Trump files to a secure location amid pressure by Trump's rich buddies. The school agreed to help guarantee the files would never get out, citing fear of litigation. They were intimidated. And this all took place around the same time Trump was accusing Obama of being a terrible student and demanding his grades be released, which is typical Trump, right? Realize you suck at something, blame your opponents for sucking at what you suck at, and then blame Hillary Clinton. So,
yeah.
I'm sure we'll see his grades soon enough, though, because every investigative journalist in the world is on this story now.
Yeah, I mean, even if his grades are bad, though, he could just be like, Einstein had bad grades in school.
Yeah.
He could get out of it, too. It's not even that hard to get out of.
He could.
Right. But
He
his
could.
pride just won't let him.
Mm-hmm. Just that you go and preemptively, I don't know. That's just weird. I've seen a copy of a report card going around. It's fake, guys. We don't actually have his grades yet.
But it's so funny.
Yeah. No, not that one. There was another one that came out from Fordham University that showed he had a 1.23 grade point average, and it looked like a legit report card. It's not. That is a non-sourced thing. Nice try, whoever made it up. We're better at teching than the Republicans, but it is a fake. So you'll know when somebody gets a hold of his grades. I promise. I'll tell you. Also Tuesday, Washington Post reported that Trump is going to move Jesse Liu, the U.S. attorney in D.C., over to the number 3 spot at Main Justice. The big news here is that Jesse Liu, who has overseen investigations including Roger Stone, Maria Butina, Sam Patton, that's the guy who laundered Russian money into the Trump inaugural and was indicted, and one of Manafort's cases, the D.C. case, the one that we'll hear the sentencing for next week. She oversaw all that, and she's going to be replaced by somebody who might not be so friendly to these kinds of investigations, even though Trump put her there in D.C. Things seem especially fishy since we learned he asked Matthew fucking Whitaker to have Berman unrecuse himself and oversee the Southern District of New York Cohen, prosecution there, so he'd be a Trump-friendly guy. This is just one more example of Trump trying desperately to cauterize one of the multiple tendrils that has sprouted from the Mueller probe. He will lose. So, good luck. In Manafort news this week. Oh, God. Yeah. So first, you guys know most of this. Mueller filed a thing this week saying, it's a technical term for it. He filed a thing saying Manafort shouldn't get any downward variation on his sentence. He shouldn't get a break because he's a giant piece of criminal shit. And Matthew Miller and I will go into the sentencing hearing that took place Thursday in depth in the interview later in the show. But to set that up for you, Mueller basically hammered Manafort, saying he's got no remorse. He's not accepted responsibility for his actions. He lied to prosecutors. And he put all that in his sentencing response this past Tuesday. And then the sentencing hearing happened, obviously. And then Friday, after we recorded the interview, after I recorded the interview with Matthew Miller, the transcripts of the Thursday hearing came out, so we didn't get to talk about this. But we learned that after Manafort was sentenced to fewer than 4 years for crimes that sentencing guidelines recommended 19.5 to 24.5 years, so he got a huge break, right? Manafort's attorneys had the chutzpah to ask Ellis to order that the upcoming sentencing in D.C. be served concurrently, which means at the same time, not consecutively, to which Ellis said, it's up to her. And then I don't know, it just takes a special level of privilege to ask for that shit after you just got that massive break, and now you want the court to order her sentence to be served concurrently with the one that you just got. It's absolute bullshit.
Yeah, they feel like they're on a roll. You're just pressing their luck.
Oh, that made me mad. And Chuck Rosenberg said about the request, quote, many years ago, I just love Chuck Rosenberg. Many years ago, Congress passed the statute to create federal sentencing guidelines to bring some parity to the system. So if you did what Manafort did, let's say in San Diego or Spokane or Topeka, you would get roughly the same sentence regardless of which court or which judge was handling the matter. And this wasn't just a departure. This was a dramatic departure. And it was a departure without a motion from the government to depart downward. Manafort lied. He did not deserve a departure, and he didn't deserve what he got, meaning he should have gotten a lot more, so, unquote. Manafort will be sentenced in D.C. next week. We've talked about this, and I'm hoping Judge Jackson throws the book at him. He's also, as we know, facing state charges now for tax fraud, so there's still hope. They're teeing up in the we covered this in the midweek episode, I believe. New York Attorney General and possibly Eastern District of Virginia are teeing up crimes against Manafort.
Yeah, I wonder if she'll go harder on him because he was gone so easy on with Ellis.
It was her case that he blew up the plea deal in.
Right.
So, and
yeah, she's already been pissed off.
And another main difference that some folks are talking about is that he pleaded guilty in her court. He pleaded not guilty in Ellis's court. Another thing is he only got 2 counts against him in the D.C. court. Presumably would have gotten a lot more, but he only got 2 in order to get the plea deal, which he blew up. So I don't think she's going to go that easy on him. My beans are on 8 years.
Yeah.
Consecutively.
Yes. Yeah, that would be awesome. I feel like, too, if Ellis is consulting other cases of the past of similar natures to, justify not throwing the whole book at him and even less what he did, I feel like that'd be completely fair.
Threw a pamphlet at him.
Yeah.
A brochure.
Here's some light reading for you.
Brochure.
So you committed treason.
Yeah.
Through the cliff notes.
Look it over. See how you feel about it. I wonder if then it would be appropriate. I feel like it would be appropriate for Jackson to reference other cases as well in her sentencing, one of them being Ellis, that totally gave him a light sentence. Probably doesn't work like that.
She could.
What is precedent, really? That's my question.
I'm just so upset about that sentencing that, and oddly, I haven't had all the Trump guys who normally come at me and tell me to fuck myself in the heart. They haven't come at me and said, haha, he only got 4 years. Probably because, obviously, my response would be, Trump's campaign manager's going to prison. Like,
yeah.
What? Oh, it's only 4 years. You win. Like, fuck you. So maybe that's why they're leaving me alone. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe it's because I blocked them all.
Yeah. I really do feel like Ellis has some sort of disdainment, though, for the fact that case even arose, because it wouldn't have arisen if it weren't for the Mueller probe. So I feel like, I mean, at least it should have, and it could have, but it probably wouldn't have.
Well, Mueller's charging document, his scope says to look into these crimes of collusion, and anything else that comes up. So he was well within his scope. But Ellis said time and again, hey, man, I know all what you're trying to do. There's no collusion here. You're just trying to put the screws to Manafort to get him to flip on Trump. I don't like it. Whatever. I think he's an old-timey Republican white guy, so
totally.
I guess they stick together.
That amount of leverage is the way that our justice system is able to operate and get any sort of intel out of people.
That's a common thing. That's how we catch crimes. So anyway, we'll go over that in the interview too. It was depressing. Then something odd happened Wednesday, you guys. We learned that Chelsea Manning was subpoenaed to testify in the case against Assange and WikiLeaks. And if you remember, Chelsea Manning was sentenced to 35 years for supplying documents to WikiLeaks, and Obama commuted all but 4 months of her sentence back in 2017 after she'd already served 7 years. She appeared, so you can understand her trepidation here. She appeared in court Wednesday with the U.S. Attorney and Assistant Attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia, Zachary Terwilliger, and I call him G. Willikers, and Kellen Dwyer, where Chelsea Manning said she did not want to testify on the grounds that it could violate her First, Fourth, and Sixth Amendment rights. But on Friday, the judge remanded her to custody, quote, until she purges or the end of the life of the grand jury, unquote. So she's in jail until she either ponies up whatever they're asking her or until the grand jury disbands. So Chelsea Manning told a reporter she was prepared to go to jail following the closed contempt hearing. She's like, I already done 7 years, bro. This grand jury can't last more than 18 months.
All her friends welcome her back.
Yeah. And as you guys all know, because of I think it was a copy and paste error on the docket, we all learned that Assange had been indicted already. So I assume they're subpoenaing Manning to get her testimony on Assange, maybe to help build the case in the hack Russia dissemination of hacked documents, Hillary emails, DCCC, DNC, etc. And we also learned that another person involved in the case has already agreed to testify in exchange for immunity. Jaleesa, you reported this on the midweek episode. It's really an amazing story.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that the silver lining here is that Fox News is actually gendering her properly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're respectful in that nature. Surprisingly,
or they forgot.
So. Well, yeah, I mean, that's possible, but I don't know. They might have respect for her help with WikiLeaks. Like, they're on that side sometimes.
Yeah,
like
but they're on WikiLeaks' side right now.
Yeah, exactly, and so.
So she's the enemy.
You think she's the enemy of Fox? Oh, I guess by now maybe, but at the time, no. So.
Because
they have a strange
changed.
Camaraderie, with their history.
Yeah, they have a strange, relationship with
the big switch,
consistency. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that was nice. They're calling her she. I'm as appreciative of that, at least. Then my favorite story of the week happened Wednesday when we learned that the New York State Department of Financial Services, that's the same agency that extracted a $425 million fine for a Russian money laundering scheme from Deutsche Bank, has requested documents from Trump's insurance brokers regarding his possible inflation of assets to defraud insurance companies. That's a crime. The reason this is my favorite story is it has nothing to do with the Department of Justice or special counsel or any U.S. Attorney's Office, so Trump can't touch it. Remember when I said he's trying to cauterize all these tendrils from the Mueller investigation by either getting Berman to unrecuse himself or now moving Jesse Liu over to Justice Department from D.C.? He can't do anything about this. They have nothing to do with any of that. And we know, I mean, this is his way. He can't pardon himself out of it. He's fucked on this. He's just fucked on this. And he's tried everything to quash the investigations into him, his business, his family, but he has zero muscle over the New York State Department of Financial Services, and they're a big damn organization. So we'll keep a close eye on this one. They can't indict people, but they can file civil suits. That's how they got the $425 million from Deutsche Bank alone. And they can make criminal referrals. So put some beans on it. We also learned Wednesday that Trump pressured staff to grant a security clearance to Ivanka Trump. We knew from last week he did this with Kushner, despite saying in January he had nothing to do with it. And Ivanka said in an interview 3 weeks ago, well, maybe 4 weeks ago now, saying the president played no part. I love how she calls him the president and not daddy or something weird. We know that House Dems have asked for memos from John Kelly and Don McGahn regarding Trump, pushing them to grant the clearances. On Tuesday, the White House rebuffed the memo request. They're just not going to comply with the request from House Oversight. And we've learned that the House Oversight is probably going to exercise their subpoena power, which could lead to a court battle. But Friday, we learned from Axios that a White House source has already leaked the Kelly and McGahn memos pertaining to Jarvanka's clearances before the House Oversight even demanded them from the White House. They handed them over. And we've known for a while there are leakers in the White House, that people that oppose Trump, alt-Fed employees, alt-White House staff. And they've leaked a lot to the press, but to learn they're leaking documents related to national security to the House Democrats is a whole new ballgame. And I don't know if the White House has to comply with the request in order for a criminal referral to be made, nor do I know if the leakers could seek protection under the Whistleblower Act from Congress, though I suspect if they could, the House would advise them on that. It's important to note here that the House could also get these memos from Kelly and McGahn themselves, neither of which are known for their allegiance to Trump. And we know McGahn has been cooperating with prosecutors. He spent 30 hours speaking to Mueller about the Russia probe. So add this to the pile of scandals about to be uncovered by the House Dems. It's getting crazy.
Yeah. Sucks to be Trump right now.
You guys are... Yeah. All right. And the Daily Beast reported Wednesday that Alan Dershowitz was accused in open court of participating in pedophile Jeffrey Epstein's famous sex trafficking ring. A lawyer of a victim told the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit that the testimony of other witnesses will show Alan Dershowitz was involved in the trafficking. This took place during oral arguments for a case in the Miami Herald, a case that the Miami Herald filed to unseal documents relating to a settled lawsuit from one of the victims. Dershowitz was one of the members of Epstein's legal team that helped broker the sweetheart deal handed down by now Labor Secretary and then U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta. That deal is now being investigated in the House after a federal judge found Acosta broke the law when he gave that deal to Jeffrey Epstein. And it came as no surprise to me, or anyone probably, that Dershowitz asked last week if the judge could please limit press access to the Epstein hearings. So hats off to the Miami Herald for following this story for so long. That's some really amazing local journalism down there.
Definitely.
Bloomberg reported Wednesday that despite White House denials that Trump played a role in the inaugural, he was actually very involved in the planning, and specifically a couple of events that are now under scrutiny from federal prosecutors. In response to multiple investigations into the inaugural fund, Sarah Huckabee Sanders said that the only involvement the president had was showing up, raising his hand, and taking the oath of office, and that he didn't have anything to do with planning or anything like that. He was hands off, right? Tiny hands off. But according to people familiar with the planning, Trump had his tiny hands in all kinds of things, from allocation of broadcasting rights to procurement of tablecloths. He's a micromanager, and that just makes me hate him even more. Those investigations are still ongoing by both House Dems and federal prosecutors, including Mueller, and we will keep you posted.
Does Sarah Sanders ever speak any words that is not just like explaining away Donald Trump? I don't think I've ever heard her say anything that's just not of that nature.
No, I think that's her whole job. Either that or she says you'll have to talk to private counsel.
Yeah. What a trip. I can't believe she's still there.
Yeah, some people say she's still there because no one else will hire her. We haven't had a press conference in 40 days. So,
God damn.
That's pretty biblical. There are some amazing stories coming to light this week about the woman who owned the day spa in Jupiter, Florida, where Robert Kraft, and that's the Patriots owner, and 24 others were arrested in a sting operation for getting handies from trafficked women. And Jaleesa, you got that story in Hot Notes this week.
Oh, yeah.
And Jordan, Erik Prince was back in the news this week, and you'll be going over that in a little bit. So finally, Friday, we learned that White House communications chief and former Fox News executive Bill Shine is leaving the White House, so Trump will need a new defense against the dark arts director.
That was nice and subtle.
And that's what it reminds me of, because if you ever watch Harry Potter, every year they have to get a new defense against the dark arts teacher. Like, that's the rotating position, and this seems to be that one in the White House. He's the 6th communications director, a group that included Sean Spicer, Hope Hicks, and Scaramucci, the Mooch. So Shine plans to continue staying in the Trump orbit as a senior advisor to the president's 2020 re-election campaign. In recent months, good luck with that. In recent months, that's run by Brad Parscale. That guy's going to jail. So anyway, recent months, Trump has complained about his shitty press coverage, and apparently instead of blaming his own stupid ass, he blamed his communications chiefs. That's why the turnover rate is so high there. And the turnover rate for Trump advisors on the whole is 65%, which begs the question, if everyone hates you, maybe it's you. You know what I mean? Like, people who walk around haters, everybody fucking hates me, fuck these dudes. You're a fucking asshole. Like, that is why you have so many haters.
Yeah, self-reflection is hard for him to grasp.
Oh, yeah, and he seeks out assholes, too. And then the assholes even call him out for being an asshole. That's a mega asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Says a lot.
Time to take a swim in Lake U. All right, guys, we'll be right back. Hey, Mueller junkies. Sticking to our resolutions can be tough, especially when we aren't armed with the tools to mitigate negative thoughts and obstacles that hold us back. And most people who lose weight or try to pivot to a healthy lifestyle fall back into old habits, because most weight loss and health plans only give you the behaviors, and they don't focus on the psychology or the underlying issues that prevent us from sticking to our goals. Well, now there's Noom. And with Noom, not only do you get the tools you need, like a user-friendly app that has a step counter, a food log, and a community support, a nutritionist, all in the palm of your hand, but it also provides education and insight into why we behave the way we do, so that you're armed with all the information you need to be successful. Noom knows that everyone is different, and that a different approach to committing to a healthy lifestyle can be the catalyst for change that we need. Noom helps you build better habits, it's tailored to your lifestyle, and it's tailored to your goals. They don't just focus on food and exercise, but they look at the big picture and help you tailor a plan that fits your ultimate goals, whether it's weight loss, forming new healthy habits, or just being comfortable with who you are. Best of all, it's convenient, and there's an entire community of users at your fingertips to help motivate you, or just lend an ear. The most important thing I've learned so far personally is defining my relationship with food, which is so much more effective than just being told what to eat or what not to eat. And you'll have access to a personal coach and nutritionist that you can bounce ideas off of. Jordan, I know you love Noom. We talk about it all the time.
Yeah, it's great. I really, like you said, all the tips that they teach you, they're things that really stick with you and they make a lot of sense. Just things you wouldn't really think of, like eat more liquids, for example, because you get full faster and it keeps you full. And it's just stuff that's pretty simple science, but just to have it explained to you like that, it's like, oh yeah, and it really clicks.
Yeah, that was one that stuck with me, was sometimes when you're hungry, you're actually just thirsty, have some water. And it actually totally works, and you get the bonus of being hydrated.
Absolutely.
So right now there's a 30-second online evaluation that's super easy. It helps you develop your health or weight loss goals. For me, I wanted to lose a few pounds, but I really wanted to develop new healthy habits, and their convenient program allowed me to not only set and reach my goals, but maintain them. And right now you can sign up for a trial by visiting Noom. That's noom.com/AG. What do you have to lose? Head to noom.com/AG to start your trial today. Again, that's noom.com/AG. You'll be glad you did. All right, welcome back. Hot Notes. All right, guys, today for Hot Notes, Jordan, you're going to bring back some classic Prince. But first, Jaleesa, you have a story about the owner of a massage parlor where Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, and 24 other people received hand jobs from trafficked women. What do you got? This is interesting. This is a fascinating thing.
This was really interesting. So we've heard a lot about Cindy Yang in the news this week. She's a 45-year-old Florida entrepreneur from China who created the chain of massage parlors where, like you said, AG, the Patriots owner, was caught getting, I guess, a grudge tug, I assume. And even though Yang no longer owns the spa Kraft went to, the other spas her family runs have, quote, gained a reputation for offering sexual services. And then we found out from the Miami Herald that last month, Yang attended a Super Bowl viewing party at Trump's golf club in Palm Beach. They even took a selfie together, which is really cute. But the weirdest part about all of this is that Yang runs an investment business that offers to sell Chinese clients access to the Trump family. It's kind of like Essential Consultants, except this one is just for Chinese people. In fact, on our company's website, which is 90% in Chinese, there's a ton of pictures of Yang and her clients mingling at Mar-a-Lago, which implies that she's been having some success in getting her clients access to Trump. And Yang and her husband started this company. It's called GYUS Investments, LLC, which is really interesting.
GYUS Investments.
Oh, yeah. I was wondering how that would be catchy, but you nailed that. Yeah. They pretty much started this around 2017, and they describe it as, quote, an international business consulting firm that provides public relations services to assist businesses in America to establish and expand their brand image in the modern Chinese marketplace.
That's a really nice way of saying giving hand jobs to rich people.
Basically, it's fucking essential.
I'm consulting here.
The firm also mentions that its services include helping their clients make high-level connections in the United States. Mm-hmm. And the listed activities for clients includes opportunities to interact with and take pictures with the president. And the overall message conveyed by the company seems to be hire Yang's company and she can get you close to Trump and the U.S. government. And if the pictures are real, then she obviously has been able to at least get them close to Trump, which is pretty successful, I guess, in her message.
Yeah, and that was a really good tie-in, Jaleesa. It is just essential consulting because he's selling access. She's selling access to Trump.
Pretty much.
She sells
selling selfies.
Yeah.
And
by the seashore.
Yeah.
She sells
Cindy Lee sells
selfies. She sells selfies by the seashore.
Yeah. Basically. Molly Zhang-Fast had a really funny Twitter thread about this. She posted all the pictures of the people that Cindy Yang has taken pictures with, and she listed all their nicknames. She called Dan Bogino Bingo Bongo.
Oh, Bongino, yeah.
Yeah.
She calls him Bingo Bongo. I call him Oingo Boingo.
That's adorable.
But yeah, he's taking pictures with her.
Yeah, really strange. Even Diamond and Silk, the weird Black Republican ladies who got really popular on YouTube, and then all these political figures like Don Jr. and Matt Gaetz.
Matt Gaetz is my favorite.
Yeah, really weird.
Yeah, and I like how she's like, "Oh, you look a little flushed there, Matt. Did you have a nice time before you took that photo?"
Yeah, where'd you get that glow?
His cheeks are all red. They're probably gin blossoms, but whatever.
Yeah, it would make sense
I'm
that
just real white.
Totally.
Yeah, and then I think this is about to get blown wide open.
Yeah.
So we'll find out. And then I think I sent you that article too that they have found that she was supplying trafficked women to Chinese businessmen that were staying at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort.
Mm-hmm.
And you tell me Trump didn't know about that.
Right.
So he's a pimp, basically.
Yeah. And the sadder reality is it's probably happening at all of those high-end resorts because that's just a thing that goes with people with money, and it's fucking horrible.
And I'm totally fine with it as long as they're not trafficked sex slaves.
Yeah.
Like, there are...
right, yeah, that's what I meant, the trafficking
Yeah,
part.
it's the trafficking part, right? That's the problem, at least for us. I know that a lot of people have problems with prostitution. I do not. But that they're trafficked. And we were talking about... who was it that was selling Russian women to people in California and taking their passports?
Yes, that was from the book club. That was one of the Russian mobsters.
From the McCabe book club. We're doing a book club. If you're a patron, they're free, ad-free episodes. We're reviewing the book The Threat.
They're fun.
By McCabe. They are super fun. But there's a lot of interesting information in there. And this just seems to be a thing that these guys do. And when they bring these women over, whether it's from Russia, Ukraine, Baltic states, whether it's Chinese or Vietnamese, they bring them over, and they're usually very young, most of them underage, and they confiscate their passports and they make them have sex with people in order to earn them back, basically. They earn them back on their backs. For some reason I had a different word in my head, but it was repetitive. But yeah, it's absolutely horrifying, and I know Trump's wrapped up in this. And then we've got the Epstein thing, and we've got this Kraft thing, and I want to know who the 24 other people were.
Yeah,
that were arrested.
Totally. They say there might be a name. This is just a theory that there might be a name bigger than Kraft involved in all of this.
Oh, there is. It's
Donald
Trump.
Oh, you think that's the one?
I think
that would make sense.
I think, yeah.
If you don't know that they're trafficked, do you get prosecuted for like aiding and abetting sex trafficking?
I think that you have to. I don't know. I really don't know how that law works, because it would be hard to prove that you knew the person that you were with was a trafficked human. I think that the actual people who organized the trafficking ring probably get the trafficking charges, and the people who just took advantage of the services but were unaware, you can't prove that they were aware, probably just get prostitution charges.
Yeah, because apparently they caught him on video and stuff. So, yeah.
All right. Wow. So
thanks, dude.
Yeah, that's really good reporting, and really a lot to think about. Jordan, what's the latest on Prince to pivot?
Yes. So Erik Prince is back in the news. He's the CEO and founder of the private security firm Blackwater, just a reminder. And he's a strong supporter of Donald Trump, who's been wrapped up in a couple of very sketchy meetings throughout Trump's campaign. But of course, he's claimed that he never played any role in his campaign, either official or unofficial. But it would appear that he did, because Prince was the guy who met up with the Russian oligarch Kirill Dmitriev in the Seychelles just days before Trump's inauguration. This is a meeting that has been described by experts as, quote, an apparent effort to establish a back-channel line of communication between Moscow and President-elect Donald Trump, end quote. But now Prince is facing scrutiny over another meeting that he arranged back in August 2016 at Trump Tower. New York Times reported on this in May of 2018. This meeting was attended by Erik Prince himself, DTJ, George Nader, Stephen Miller, fucking douchebag, I hate that guy, and Joel Zamel. He's that social media expert, Israeli social media expert. And Prince has now said that meeting wasn't a big deal. It was just to discuss Iran policy. But what's extra sketchy is now, after sitting down with a great interview it was conducted by Mehdi Hassan of Al Jazeera English, his statements are seeming to contradict what he told the House Intelligence Committee back in 2017 about this Trump Tower meeting. Or rather, what he didn't tell them, because Prince didn't tell them about this meeting at all. When he was asked why he didn't mention the meeting to Congress, and he was really getting grilled. This guy he was just no remorse.
Mehdi Hassan is the man. Yeah. Every single journalist needs to interview these guys like this.
Yeah, and really awesome. Like, no apologies, just moving forward with what has been discovered in this case, and just unabashedly asking him these questions. So when he asked him why he didn't mention the meeting to Congress, he said that he didn't remember being asked. But he was asked. He was asked if he had any formal communications or contact with the campaign, and I do believe that this would qualify as such. Then later in the interview, Erik Prince switches and says that he did answer that question, actually, but not everything was on the record in the transcript, and that they made a mistake in the transcript, and that was why it wasn't showing up. And then he amends
and everyone
it.
laughed at him. They all laughed at him when he said that. Oh, transcript's wrong. The whole place laughed at him, and Megasod's like, the transcript's wrong. Okay.
Right. Yeah, he says the transcript is wrong, then he amends it to say that it was said off the record, that those comments were said off the record. But no members of Congress have indicated that anything off the record said anything about that meeting either.
Yeah, no, because if you're asked that and you can't say it, then you say, I'm not able to answer that question. But when he was asked what he did for the campaign, he said, put up a yard sign.
Mm-hmm.
He answered the question. He lied. And, of course, the transcript is wrong.
Right. And then when he was asked by Mediason if he was worried about potentially getting sent to prison by Mueller for lying to Congress, and he said, nope, not at all. Thankfully, Prince was on that list of people that Nadler requested documents from this week, though, so hopefully that ought to reveal more.
Yeah, he actually said, I haven't been contacted in 9 months. That's because you're a target, asshole. That's what that means.
They're getting to it.
That's what that means. If you were a witness, you'd have been contacted.
Mm-hmm.
You're in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, wow, thanks for that. And that's a huge story because we had Seth Abramson on here for our 2018 season finale, and I asked all 17 or so of our past guests what they thought the most important story of 2018 was, and he said it was the August 3rd meeting and that grand bargain. So I think we're going to hear a lot more about this, and that's kind of what I hope the Mueller report sort of focuses on is that meeting. We'll see. We don't know what it's going to say. It's not for sale on Amazon, even though it is, so don't buy it yet.
Yeah, and also Donald Trump Jr., he is implicated so many times in all of those meetings.
Yeah, he's
it's
at all
insane.
of them.
Yeah, it's like, you know how, this is the analogy I was thinking of when, like, there's a comedy competition and you might bring all of your friends or something to vote for you, assuming you still have friends left as a comic, which is very rare. But then all your friends and all these different groups of friends are voting number one. But then it's those number two votes that wind up pushing that person into first place that everybody sort of is getting. Donald Trump Jr. is the number two. He's like the connecting person in all of these stories.
And so everybody knows what Jordan is describing is when we have these comedy competitions, they use ranked choice voting.
Yes.
So you have to pick your top 4 and put 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it is always the number 2 guy that is the number 1 person.
Yeah.
And you're right. He's implicated in so many things. He's number 2.
Yeah.
For sure. Giant piece of poop.
He is also Donald Trump number 2.
Haha.
So sorry.
Nice.
But we just learned a lot about comedy and
Poop.
Erik Prince. Poop. Did what?
Number 2.
Oh, yeah. Number 2.
Okay. So enough with the poop. Didn't we say early on when we started this that the whole show was just going to be about slavery and poop?
We did. Yeah, we've been lacking on the slavery, which is probably for the best. But the poop, poop remains.
The poop remains.
Okay. That's a really, I don't know what episode that was, 3 or something.
Yeah.
It's an old
We're
flashback.
classier people now.
Yeah, our motto's changed.
We've grown so much. All right, so today, many of you have asked. I got a lot of emails to ask me to go over the 81 people that Gerry Nadler sent letters to demanding documents from the House Judiciary Committee. First, again, if you want a rundown of all 81, just listen to the pod from episode 1 because that about covers it. But even though each and every person on that list has been named in our pod at some point, I wanted to go over some of the more obscure ones for you because no matter how amazing your murder board is, there's just no way you're going to remember who they all are. And I had to look up a couple myself. So before we jump in, I wanted to point out that Nadler's requests aren't like the Trump inaugural subpoena in that they aren't asking for everything ever, right? As you know, the House Intelligence Committee, run by Adam Schiff, is focused on Trump's ties to Russia, as I said before, whereas the judiciary is more interested in the obstruction of justice piece, and a few other things as well. And this document request is more specifically for things these folks have already handed over to special counsel or federal prosecutors and state attorneys general. So they should have them on hand already, ready to go. They've already handed them over, and there's no privilege because they've waived the privilege by giving them to prosecutors in any of those other cases. So they have no reason to refuse. They've already given them over to somebody. So that waives any privilege that they might try to assert. So that being said, here we go. First name on the list you might not recognize is the number 1 name, Alan Garten. We added him to the fantasy indictment draft in episode 20. The episode 20 is kind of the pivotal draft, because we got that Minority Report.
I remember that.
Which is what Adam Schiff was saying. The Republicans aren't asking for shit, and I want follow-up documents on all these people and all these entities. And I'm like, well, here's my fantasy indictment draft list.
Yeah, the cheat sheet for us.
Yeah.
The first one. We've gotten a few since, too.
So check out episode 20. We mentioned him there. He's a Trump Organization lawyer, and he's the chief legal officer there. So all Mueller requests about real estate deals such as Trump Tower Moscow, or there was a real estate deal between Trump and Putin allies in Latvia, Riga, Latvia, they all would have gone through this guy. So he got a letter. The next name that you might not recognize is Annie Donaldson. She's the chief of staff for Don McGahn, and Mueller has her extensive notes on the firing of Jim Comey, which goes to the heart of obstruction of justice. Another name you might not recognize is Jason Maloney. He was Manafort's spokesman, and he testified before Mueller's grand jury back in 2017. He's been questioned about Manafort's meetings with Kilimnik, likely surrounding the allegation that Manafort handed over sensitive polling data to the Russians. So that's Maloney. Then we have John Suboxone. He was it sounds like a drug. If you take Suboxone, don't take if you're allergic to Suboxone. You might experience trouble swallowing, sleep apnea, horseshoes. I don't know. Anyway, Suboxone was the business partner of Peter Smith. And Peter Smith is the guy who scanned the dark web for Hillary emails, and he ended up dying by suicide. See, I did it. And he left a note that said, "No foul play whatsoever." That was his suicide note. And Suboxone and Smith were the two signers for the bank account for KLS Research. That's another one on our Fantasy Indictment League. That's the account that had mysterious large cash deposits and withdrawals around the time Peter Smith was looking for the Clinton emails. And Suboxone interviewed with Mueller 3 times that we know of. So there's him. Then we have Julian David Wheatland, and he's one of the CEOs for Cambridge Analytica. So that's Wheatland, in case you're wondering. I know everyone thinks of Alexander Nix when we think of Cambridge Analytica. So that's Wheatland. You also might not recognize the name Mark Corallo, but we've talked about him pretty extensively. He's the lawyer that was on Air Force One coming back from G20 2017 when Trump concocted the phony statement for the New York Times on behalf of Don Jr., number 2, saying the Trump Tower meeting was about Russian adoptions. Remember, and he probably got that from Putin because he had that little secret meeting with Putin at the G20 summit, and that might have been, hey, what do I say about this? They're asking about the meeting. Say it's about adoptions. Anyway, Mark Corallo quit right then. He said, I got to get out of here. This is obstruction of justice.
He jumped off the plane.
Yeah. Boo! Yeah, we joked about that. You got to have a couple parachutes on Air Force One because of obstruction of justice. I don't want to obstruct justice. Cowabunga. Then there's Matt Tate. He's former information security specialist at Britain's government communications headquarters that Peter Smith contacted to find out if the emails he found on the dark web were legit. And I don't know what this dark web is. Maybe I'm too old. But
I've heard about it, but I've never been on myself.
I think it's a made-up thing to sell us fraud protection.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think it's real.
I think it's real. It's just I don't want to be there.
Yeah, what, is it like WWP?
It's like the Matrix, man. You gotta know some people to get in there.
Oh, yeah, I'm not in the know. Hey, if anybody can hook me up with dark web tickets, let me know.
Dark web tickets. That's adorable.
Thank you. Then there's Christopher Bancroft Burnham. And Christopher Bancroft Burnham, and he's a former Deutsche Bank executive that was one of the 7 people appointed to the board of Deripaska's aluminum company after he divested in a bid to get sanctions lifted, which worked. So that's Christopher Bancroft Burnham. He's a Deripaska fella. Then we have Tom Bossert, who was the White House Homeland Security and Counterterrorism Advisor, and I think, and these are beans, that he was too good at providing cybersecurity for things like election meddling, so Trump forced him out. Those are beans, but he left pretty early on. He left around the time Trump was flirting with firing Mueller, so Bossert might have some information about obstruction of justice in that vein.
Interesting.
Finally, there's Tony Fabrizio. We've talked about him before. He's the pollster for the Trump campaign. He was questioned by Mueller over a year ago, likely regarding the Manafort-Kilimnik meetings and potential exchange of polling data that occurred between them. So that's Fabrizio. And anyway, that's it. I went through the whole list. Everybody else we should know.
Yeah, those were the more like obscure names that popped out to me too.
Yeah, and of course, me being me, if you have any more questions about any of those individuals and you're not getting any answers or you can't find any juice, we're working on putting a database up on our website, a searchable database. You can pop a name in, it'll tell you what episode to go to listen about that person. So keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, again, shoot us an email, hello@MuellerSheWrote. I'm not going to tell you about all 81. That's like 7,000 hours. You really just have to listen because the stories are so involved and the threads are too many to put them in succinct little.
Yeah, they're so intertwined. You can't just list them.
Right. And that's that curatorial journalism that we talk about, where we have to frame everything so that you can put it in context. It's just too much. That's why the podcast exists in the first place. So have a listen to some of those back episodes. The big ones were like 6, 8, 12, 16, 24, 32. These are all like
20
even numbers.
was a big one too.
20 was a big one because that's when we introduced the whole giant list from the Minority Report. Episode 2, the Magnitsky Act, that was a big one. The first one's adorable because we're like, Flynn's going to get indicted tomorrow. And Junior's going down.
Yeah.
We're in the kitchen. Yeah. Again, sorry about the sound quality. This podcast was started on a whim the week I thought of it in my kitchen with microphones that come in Cracker Jack boxes. So be aware of that. And we were all just learning how to edit. We do all of our own editing and all of our own sound production. So we were just learning that. We're a little bit better at it now. We still have much room to improve because everyone does, but yes, bear with us on the sound quality on those early ones. Thank you so much. Anyway, those are the names you might not recognize. Among the letters sent out by Nadler on behalf of the Judiciary Committee, everyone else on the list, like I said, we've mentioned multiple times. I'm glad to hear from you guys, and I'm thankful that you had recognized, because you guys had put out a lot of tweets, like when that list came out, we had a lot of listeners saying, thanks to Mueller, she wrote, I know who all these motherfuckers are. Woohoo! So I don't know what good that does you unless you have some weird trivia night at a pub near you.
That's a great idea. Mueller Trivia Night.
But those
if
are
you're
our
a bar owner, you should do that.
Those are our live shows.
Yeah.
I don't think it would work out well, though, because I've been out at bars a couple of times when, like, Roger Stone was on there, and everyone's like, who's that fucking guy? And I'm like, oh, okay.
Not in the crowd.
Yeah. Trivia wouldn't work well there.
Yeah.
I'm actually still surprised by how many people don't know who the major players are in this, and I don't know. We'll see how it goes down, but thank you guys so much for your votes of confidence. We really appreciate it, and we'll be right back. Hey, Mueller junkies. Mueller, She Wrote is brought to you by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community for creators. With more than 25,000 classes in design, business, tech, and more, you'll discover countless ways to fuel your curiosity, creativity, and your career. Take classes in social media marketing, mobile photography, creative writing, film, or even illustration. So whether you're looking to discover a new passion, just keep going with your lifelong learning goals, or start a side job, Skillshare is there to support your goals in lifelong learning. I recently took an organization class on Skillshare because I have a tough time managing my calendar with my day job, the podcast, comedy, the upcoming tour. And so I really needed some tools on how to manage my calendar. And I took this class. The interaction felt really personal, and I was able to come away with a ton of information on improving my time management skills. So I absolutely love the interface, and I can't recommend it enough. Jordan, you took a class, right?
Yeah, I did one called Do Things Tell People, The Power of Personal Branding. And that was good for me because that's such a big part of the industry that we're in, and I have a hard time, sort of. I feel weird posting about myself, kind of, because I don't know how to do it or where to start. And yeah, it's just nice. It's pretty simple. You do stuff, and then you tell them about it.
Yeah, and I'm going to start looking for a class on there. I think they have a couple on not just branding yourself, but like saying nice things about yourself, selling yourself, because I always have a hard time writing bios, and we have to write them all the time. So that's something else I want to look into. So anyway, guys, join the millions of students already learning on Skillshare today with a special offer just for our listeners. You get 2 months of Skillshare for free. That's right, Skillshare is offering Mueller, She Wrote listeners 2 months of unlimited access to over 25,000 classes for free. So to sign up, go to Skillshare.com/AG. Again, that's Skillshare.com/AG to start your 2 months now. One more time, Skillshare.com/AG. You'll be glad you did. All right, are you guys ready for sabotage?
Yes.
All right, this week's Sabotage is brought to you by the over 550 registered LLCs owned by Trump and the Trump Organization, none of which he really divested from when he took office, as most presidents normally do. For example, Jimmy Carter, he sold his peanut farm to avoid conflicts of interest. Well, now, Democrats in the House are debating whether to expand their inquiry into Trump's taxes. As we all know, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez asked a brilliant line of questions when Cohen was testifying publicly to the House Oversight Committee last week. She asked if Trump had inflated his assets to commit insurance fraud, basically. Yes. And then she followed up with an inquiry about how can we determine that fact? Should maybe we look at his financial statements and his tax returns and compare the two? And Cohen was like, yeah. So that basically, she wanted to look for the committee to be able to assess the inconsistencies between those two documents, right? Tax returns and financial statements. And that teed up the Finance Committee to file formal requests for Trump's taxes to the IRS, which is going to likely hit the IRS in the next week or so. Well, now House Democrats are considering expanding the scope of that request to include Trump's business taxes, according to a Reuters report released late Friday. This is just last night. Success against legal resistance would depend on the ability of Democrats to prove a legitimate legislative purpose for this request. As normally, when you do a tax request, you just get someone's personal taxes. But tax experts say that including the business taxes actually strengthens the House argument because the business returns are more likely to show where the conflicts of interest are. So buckle up for that court battle. I think it's going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a lot. 500? I did not know it was that much.
550.
God damn, that's crazy.
550 LLCs all told, and they all have names like paint colors at Home Depot. Summer Breeze. Beach Love. All right, you guys ready for the Fantasy Indictment League?
Yes.
I'm gonna be indicted!
No, wait, it's gonna be okay.
Indicted!
Honey, Dick.
Indicted!
Honey.
I'm gonna be indicted!
Oh, they can't. It's gonna be okay. Just calm down.
I can't calm down. I'm gonna be indicted!
Okay, so it's cooking up. It's getting cookie in here. And as I've said before, in case you're wondering, Mueller hands off all these tendrils, all these cases to all these different places, whether they be U.S. attorneys' offices or Main Justice. Those cases that continue on will count towards this Fantasy Indictment League because they were born out of the Mueller investigation. So whether they come from Mueller or the Southern District of New York, Eastern District of Virginia, if they're somehow related to Russian collusion or the Mueller investigation or anything that sprung from it, like the inaugural investigation, or all that counts. So keep that in mind as we go. And I picked last week first, so Jaleesa, you get to pick first this week.
Okay, I'm going to do Weisselberg.
Okay, so that's Alan Weisselberg, the guy who got limited immunity.
Yes.
The guy, CFO for Trump Org, right?
Mm-hmm.
Weisselberg. All right, Jordan.
I'm doing Erik Prince.
No.
Good stuff, man.
I wanted him too. I'm going to do Assange. Nice. Jaleesa?
Corsi plea deal.
He might be one of the 5 guys that Caputo was talking about.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Corsi plea. All right. Jordan.
DTJ.
Number 2. All right, I'm going to go with WikiLeaks. I'm stacking the deck on Assange this week.
Yeah, smart. I'm going to do Brittany Kaiser.
All right, CEO of Cam Anna.
Mm-hmm.
One of the many. Brittany Kaiser. Jordan.
Felix Sater.
Good one, because he lied about Trump Tower. Let's see. Kush. Jaleesa.
Trump inaugural.
Trumpadonk.
Yeah. 58th presidential inaugural. It's weird, right? Because he's the 44th president, but that's the 58th inaugural. So,
well, yeah, because President served 2 terms.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
You still have an inaugural.
Bad at math is what that is. Yeah.
Jordan.
Superseding Stone.
All right, I'm gonna go with AMI. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more, Jaleesa.
Ooh, I'm also going to do Trump Org.
Jordan.
How about ban and plea deal?
Ooh. All right, that leaves me, and I'm going to say Dylan Howard. In case you're wondering, that's the other guy from AMI.
Nice.
All right, that's it. That's the Fantasy Indictment League, so it should be interesting. I'm not sure. There were rumors swirling around Twitterverse, and a couple of sources on the ground in D.C. saying that last Friday, like 12 indictments were going to drop, and I wasn't feeling it, so I didn't say anything, and
yeah,
I don't like to get your hopes up falsely.
Yeah, they're speculating Ivanka apparently, but I don't know what that was based on besides Twitter.
Yeah, it could have been the Azerbaijan hotel shit. Who knows? Maybe the diamonds money laundering thing that she did with her jewelry. She's been all over the place. But anyway, yeah. So I don't know if we're gonna see any. We've got John Kelly saying there'll be more indictments coming out before the Mueller probe is over. We've got people saying there aren't. This just shows that with the experts disagreeing, that no one knows what's going to go on with the Mueller report. So trying to speculate is a little weird. If I get clues, like if grand jury meets on a Thursday or something like that goes down, I might be like, I feel something coming. I feel a felony Friday.
Right.
But other than that, we just kind of have to wait and see. So patience. All right, guys, it's time for the interview. So joining us for the interview today is MSNBC Justice and Security Analyst, former Director of the Office of Public Affairs for the Department of Justice, and partner at the management consultancy firm Villanovo LP. Please welcome Matthew Miller to the show. Matthew, thanks again for coming on Mueller, She Wrote.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So I wanted to talk to you today about the sentencing of Paul Manafort this week. That was kind of the big news. And we don't really need to recap for our listeners everything that's happened so far because they're all really caught up on the back and forth sentencing memos. So let's just start off with the sentencing hearing Thursday. And I wanted to get your top line take on, first of all, the fact that Manafort spoke and then also what he said.
In some ways, what he said was what you would expect from a defendant at this stage of a trial and sentencing. They often come before the court. They usually speak, and they often kind of throw themselves on the court's mercy, talk about how painful this has been, and beg for mercy, which he did. But the part of it that was so unusual was the fact that he didn't express any remorse or really take responsibility in any meaningful way for his crimes. And whether that was just because he didn't want to, further humiliate himself that way, he's too proud that he couldn't bring himself to say that, or because he kind of wanted to hold out this thin reed of hope, to the president who might be considering a pardon, kind of saying, well, I never quite admitted to doing this. I signed the plea documents in D.C., but I never stood up in court and took responsibility. Maybe it gives the president more of an excuse to pardon him. I think it's hard to know the answer to that, at least yet.
Yeah, and Judge Ellis even mentioned that in the hearing. He said, Manafort, you're expressing zero remorse here, and you're getting zero credit for cooperating, zero credit for accepting responsibility. But then on the flip side, he started to say things like Manafort had led a blameless life except for these crimes, and I was wondering what you thought of that.
You could say that Manafort had never been convicted of a crime before now. That's an appropriate thing for a judge to say. It's an appropriate thing for him to consider in deciding on what the sentence ought to be. But to say someone that spent his life working for foreign dictators, who had admitted to Congress back in the 80s that he had used influence peddling to get $40 million out of the Reagan administration to build a housing project that he wanted to develop, someone who, if you look at any of the information in the public record, really had at the minimum sort of skated very close to the law for a long time before, embarking on this 10-year crime spree that led him to be indicted in 2 districts and plead guilty in 1. Blameless was, I think, kind of an outrageous thing for the judge to say about Paul Manafort.
Yeah, and not only that, not only did he say, he's led a blameless life and all this other stuff, and his daughter, Manafort's daughter, doesn't even agree with that, but He then was talking about, okay, do you remember when Manafort's lawyers turned in their response to the sentencing memo saying, hey, there was no collusion, none of this would have happened if it weren't for those meddling special counsel people, and he would be completely a free man, and none of these crimes would have been prosecuted if they had just stuck to the Russia collusion thing. I think they said no collusion like 20 times in that document. But then Ellis kind of parroted that in the hearing, saying, I just want to go on the record saying that there's no crimes here about Russian collusion. Why would he do that?
I think, well, first of all, let me talk about Manafort's lawyers, why they put that in their filings. I think it's clear for them. They're looking for a pardon. I mean, they're parroting the president's language because they want the president to give Manafort a pardon. For the judge to do it, though, I think the only thing I can figure is it demonstrates again this hostility he had towards the special counsel and towards this case from the beginning. He showed it in the pretrial proceedings, he showed it at trial, and he showed it again yesterday. And it doesn't make any sense for him to say no collusion. Collusion, well, obviously wasn't what was at stake here. Also, there was no murder. There was no forgery. That doesn't mean the crimes that he was charged with and ultimately convicted of weren't serious crimes. They obviously were.
Yeah, and there were some people actually, I guess, looking for a silver lining, suggesting that Judge Ellis might have done that, mentioned the no collusion thing, to draw a clear line between these crimes and crimes of collusion to kind of clear up any questions about double jeopardy. But that seems like a stretch to me. Do you think I'm kind of with you. It's probably because Ellis was just not fond of this case from the beginning.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's what it was. I have a hard time figuring out what he would be doing to try to head off double jeopardy. If he gets charged with other crimes, they're going to be tried, based on the evidence, and the judge's comments aren't going to have anything to do with it. I think it was just the judge really showing, again, anger and hostility towards the defense, and just too much sympathy to this defendant, who I think, this judge looks at and sees, a version of himself, another kind of, powerful, older white man. And unfortunately, those type of defendants get better treatment than other defendants in our criminal justice system.
Yeah, and a lot of folks are calling this 47-month sentence, which is not even 4 years, and I think he's getting time served. That they're saying it's a miscarriage of justice because it sends the wrong message to America about our justice system when you consider the difference between how these white-collar crimes are prosecuted, or not prosecuted, but at least punished, versus street crimes and everyday common people. And there have been a lot of different examples put out on Twitter about folks who have done far less and served far more time. And I was wondering what you thought of the message that sends about our Justice Department or our justice system.
I think it's heartbreaking, but it's true. Our criminal justice system treats certain crimes by certain defendants less seriously than it does other crimes by other defendants. And what that means, just to put a fine point on it, is that people who commit white-collar crimes are treated less harshly than people who commit other crimes. And I'm leaving violent crimes out of here for a minute, because you can make a case that violent crimes ought to be treated by the justice system more harshly. But people that are convicted of drug distribution, and especially minorities who are convicted of drug distribution, just get harsher outcomes from the criminal justice system than white defendants, and especially white powerful defendants. It is an unfairness that has been in the system for years, and there have been some improvements, but it's still just dramatically unfair and leads to heartbreaking outcomes all the time.
I agree, and it's tough over here on this side, because part of my job, or part of my mission, is to find silver linings and kind of hold up hope for the justice system, and I'm having a hard time finding a silver lining here. So maybe we look toward next week, because we know Judge Jackson, who isn't as fond of Manafort, will sentence him in the D.C. case on 2 counts there. And there's a max of 5 years, I think, for each count. And first, he only got 2 counts, and he presumably would have faced more charges had he not struck a deal, which he totally blew up on his own. So I was wondering if Judge Jackson can take those additional crimes that weren't charged into consideration when she sentences him next week.
No, she can't do that, but what she can do is, if you look at the 2 counts for which he was charged, they sweep in a lot of conduct, especially the first count, the conspiracy to defraud the United States. It sweeps in basically everything that he had initially been charged with in D.C., And I think what she'll do is look at that and say, look, the statutory maximum here is 10 years, and she has two things to consider. One, should she give him the full 10 years or something less? And two, and this is really important, should she let the charges in D.C. run consecutively to his Virginia sentence, meaning run after, tacked on, or should they be concurrent? And I suspect, given both the seriousness of his conduct and the light sentence he got in Virginia, she'll consider all that, and we're going to see a much different looking outcome.
Yeah, and I do also wonder if the light sentence or the lenient sentence also makes it more difficult for Trump to pardon Manafort of these crimes, or, I mean, not that Trump ever pays any attention to anything that, that might have consequences or not, but I think it might make it a little more politically difficult for him to pardon such a light sentence.
Yeah, although by the time he takes the action, if he does, we'll see what the full sentence looks like when he has both on top of them. I agree that it is politically very risky for Trump to do this, but I would add, a full pardon is not his only option. He could commute his sentence. He could reduce his sentence. Like he could reduce his sentence to a year or 6 months or time served, or completely wipe out the conviction altogether with a pardon. So he does have some options at his disposal. But, doing that heading into a re-election is in some ways a foolish thing. But in other ways, it sends a message to other defendants that, hey, just keep your mouth shut, make it through, and at the end of the process, I'll be there for you.
Yeah, and we don't really know what is a mistake by this administration because I think he's got this base that just doesn't go anywhere. And you were talking a little bit earlier about the consecutive or concurrent sentencing coming up next week with Judge Jackson. And we know that Mueller, he reserved the right to request consecutive or concurrent sentencing, but he didn't do so in the last sentencing memo. So, like you said, I think maybe that lowball sentence from Ellis does leave room now for Mueller to either ask for consecutive sentences or for Judge Jackson to go that way.
Yeah, I think that's right. The sentencing hearing, I think, is on Wednesday, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if when Mueller's team, probably Andy Weissman, comes and argues before the judge that's what he asked for, and I won't be. She may not give him the full 10 years, maybe it's 7 or 8 or something, but I do think it'll probably end up running consecutive to his Virginia sentence.
Yeah, I hope so. And do you think Mueller could add any charges between now and next week? I mean, either any crimes of collusion he didn't charge, if there are any, or those 10 counts from the Eastern District of Virginia the jury was hung on. I mean, he reserved the right to retry those if he wanted, but I guess that would be retrying and different.
Yeah, I think I doubt he goes back on the Virginia case, and if he has some other charges in his back pocket, he could. He could bring those now. It seems more likely to me, though, especially if Manafort gets a serious sentence in D.C., given that he's 70 years old, let's say he ends up with, 11 years total or something, my guess is that they're probably done with him.
Yeah, and of course, none of it would matter if Trump pardons him. But like you said, there's other options, too. He could reduce his sentence or commute his sentence or give him time served. But I hear tell this week that the New York State Attorney General is preparing charges now against Manafort. And as we know, at least the tax crimes don't fall under that double jeopardy problem. And maybe even the Virginia AG could bring similar charges. I mean, how do you see this playing out in the end? Because over here, we all think Manafort should spend the rest of his life in jail.
I suspect the prosecutors in Virginia and New York are going to do now what prosecutors often do, which is watch and see what other law enforcement agencies are doing, watch and see what kind of sentences come down. And they're also going to have to take into account the statute of limitations. You could see maybe we'll just wait and deal with Manafort later unless the statute is going to run in either of those jurisdictions. It wouldn't surprise me at all if New York in particular, where the prosecutors seem to be very aggressive when it comes to looking at Manafort, wouldn't surprise me if they file charges, and bring him to trial just as a fail-safe to tell the president, look, your pardon will only do so much, won't wipe out state crime.
Yeah, well, here's hoping. And thank you again so much for joining us today. And we're excited that you're going to be joining us live on stage at the Bell House in Brooklyn on March 30th. So, and I think our other guest actually is Andrea Chalupa that night. So we're looking forward to seeing you then.
Great. Really looking forward to it.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. MSNBC Justice and Security Analyst and former Director of Office of Public Affairs for Department of Justice, Matthew Miller. Matthew, thanks so much again for coming on Mueller, She Wrote. All right, guys, that's our show. Please visit our website, MuellerSheWrote.com, for all of our latest tour information. Thanks again to Matthew Miller for coming on the show. He's so great.
Oh, yeah.
And he's going to be joining us live in New York, March 30th at the Bell House in Brooklyn. So we'll make sure to put the Minneapolis link up there when we get a moment. Jordan, you can make sure that happens, right?
Definitely.
Cool. And there's going to be VIP tickets, too, an hour-long cocktail meet and greet before reception. Hi, where we can say hi and stuff. I don't know who the special guests are going to be yet, but we'll keep you posted. Join us for our midweek episodes Wednesday nights. They're ad-free, they're full-length, and they're for patrons. So if you're not a patron, hook it up, $3. Also, check out the MSW Book Club Thursday nights. We're currently reviewing The Threat by Andrew McCabe. Excellent book so far. The audiobook is narrated by him, which we love, so you can check that out and listen to our episodes that kind of talk about the book and how it worked out. I like it especially because I feel like with everything that we know and everything you guys know as Mueller junkies and everything that Jordan and Jaleesa know, that when things come up in the book, especially things that tie to other books we've read, like Russian Roulette or the Jim Comey book, or they tie to other stories that we've done or covered, it's like all this kind of neat. We get to connect all these dots. So it's not just a book review. We don't just go through what the book says. We talk. We have more in-depth discussions about the relevance, and we try to frame it in certain time periods and how it affected other things. It's a lot of fun, and we're a little bit looser on that one too. So
yeah, good point.
Fun, and we can't wait to see you guys on the road. And yes, we will be releasing those live shows as episodes, so you will be able to hear them, provided nothing goes wrong with recording them. I want to put that caveat out there. Live sound is not always your friend. But anyway, we love and appreciate you all. Please subscribe if you haven't. We will see you Wednesday night for the midweek episode. Do you guys have any final thoughts?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, just thanks whoever made our Wikipedia page. That was really cool. I don't know who did it.
Oh, we're on Wikipedia now?
Yeah, because it's hard to do that. Like, it's hard to make a page. You gotta go through this weird sandbox system. It's like the dark web. It's confusing to me. So
it's on the dark web.
Yeah, someone made a page for us though. And it's really cool. So
I wonder if somebody on the dark web has our emails.
Well, certainly.
I think I'm so confused about what the dark web is.
I don't understand it either.
Yeah.
How do you even get to it?
I don't know. I think it's where Momo lives.
Oh.
That explains a lot.
Al Gore knows.
Al Gore knows.
He invented the internet.
The dark web. Is that just where you buy sketchy shit?
You can buy organs, I hear. It's crazy.
Organs,
okay, so it's like
identities.
Guns.
Hillary's emails are there.
Just
it's everything
right on the internet, your fingertips.
Which doesn't belong.
Wow.
The dark web, though. I think you have to have, I don't know.
A special dark computer?
Password?
Oh, yeah.
Like, how do you even get there?
A password?
It's tricky, man.
That's why I was like, maybe it's not www. Maybe it's like wwx dot something. Like, there's just some, I don't know. Dot fart. I don't know what it is.
It's
I don't know
scary.
how to get there.
It makes me think about how Mark Zuckerberg always covers up his webcam because he knows people in the dark web are always watching or whatever. So
and I wonder if the splash page just looks like the Upside Down from Stranger Things. Like it's all creepy and there's cobwebs and it's dank and sort of swampy.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
And then you just see like a box of emails floating in the swamp in the distance, and you have to somehow code your way to it, like Hackers, the movie, not just Hackers in general.
Right.
You know. Mess with the best, I like the rest. Anyway, dark web. If you have any insights, please let us know. Hit us up at Mueller She Wrote.
Let us know if we're being dramatic.
On Twitter. Send me a link.
Yeah, organs.
Tweet me a link to the dark web. Or, explain it to me at hello@Mueller She Wrote. I'm interested in what it is. I suppose I could Google it, but I bet I would not get the right information.
It's true.
What happens if you Google the dark web?
They want you to Google it.
They
won't
totally
show you the real
That's how they
answer.
get you.
I think you're right. Momo shows up.
Yeah.
McCabe shows up.
Oh no, I don't think he's dark.
No. Yeah, no.
He's on the good web.
Yeah. He's the cop. Or he's not a cop anymore, actually.
Well, once a cop, always a cop, right?
Good point.
All right, guys, everybody, please be kind to each other. Thank you for being patrons, and thank you for listening. We will see you next week. I've been AG.
I've been Jaleesa Johnson.
I've been Jordan Coburn.
And this is Mueller, She Wrote. Mueller, She Wrote is produced and engineered by AG, with editing and logo design by Jaleesa Johnson. Our marketing consultant and social media manager is Sarah Lee Steiner, and our subscriber and communications director is Jordan Coburn. Fact-checking and research by AG, and research assistance by Jaleesa Johnson and Jordan Coburn. Our merchandising managers are Sarah Lee Steiner and Sarah Hirschberger Valencia. Our web design and branding are by Joelle Reeder with Moxie Design Studios, and our website is MuellerSheWrote.com.